Koka sunarai sunarayanti. 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 Koka sunarai sunarayanti.
Hello, hi, welcome to this new episode of the Mango TV podcast. Today we have Maya Magdalena. Maya Magdalena is a shamanic sexual somatic practitioner trained by ISTA, which is the International School of Temple Arts, embodiment guide, and a Serpent High Priestess. She has been studying at various modern-day mystery schools dedicated to soul initiation, cosmology, mysteries of the body, and deep feminine mysteries. In these schools, she went through her initiation, and this is where a lot of her embodiment wisdom comes from. She's also part of a global tribe dedicated to emergence of temple and mystery school around the world, recognizing the need for them on the way of anchoring new, soulful civilization on Earth. Currently, she lives in Ibiza, where she offers community workshops, circles, and ritual, and serves men, women, and couple on their path of ecstatic embodiment, liberation, and one-on-one session. I mean, this is so exciting when you hear ecstatic embodiment liberation. Welcome, Maya.
Hello, thank you for having me.
So, as our Mangusta listener knows, we are just starting inviting Tantra expert. We will be licensing 2 documentaries on Tantra. And yes, our listener really comes to Mango TV mostly for psychedelic science, psychedelic medicine, consciousness, mindfulness, this kind of topic. And I thought that, as you say here, you know, if we need to, you said, anchoring a new soulful civilization. And so I think the most important thing these days, or what Mango TV is exploring with the end of the Mayan calendar, you know, this idea of this moment in time being a tipping point in consciousness, of people awakening, you know, all over the world. Then, of course, there is deep pocket of darkness and evil, like the war and all the misery in the world. But then there is a lot of people really awakening, so that's what we're trying to explore in this channel. So, as usual, I would like to propose you to divide this conversation in 3 main categories. But then, of course, we can go back and forth, which is a little bit the cultural background of this practice, which is very ancient, and then, you know, I want to hear what did you choose from all this, you know, enormous literature on Tantra. Then I'd love to know a little bit about your personal story and then about your practice. So tell us a little bit, what is Tantra, and then what is Tantra for you?
Yeah, I feel there's so much confusion these days about what Tantra really means. And to be honest, I don't really use word Tantra so much in my work, mainly because of that confusion. And, you know, we have like classical tantric teachings, which are in Sanskrit, and there is a lot of various translations and lineages that come from there. A lot of different teachers teaching also different kind of interpretations of these lineages. And then we have a new Tantra, which is, you know, can be pretty much everything connected to the sacred sexuality. So, yeah, everyone can tell you a different thing. But for me, ultimately, how I understand the word Tantra is really to embrace the life just as it is, to really be able to welcome and embody all aspects of life. And it can be more to do with, you know, the presence and light and the consciousness, but also, you know, more human aspect of existence, you know, more related to the body, to the desires, to the sexuality, you know, to our emotions. So for me, the tantric path is a path of actually welcoming, you know, everything that life brings us with presence, with awareness, with love, and, you know, integrating piece by piece. And this is a path towards wholeness and holiness as well, I believe.
Yeah. But so when you say integrating piece, all these pieces, which one? Can you elaborate on what are those pieces?
Yeah. So you see, like, depends where we are, right, on our personal journey. For some people, this piece might be expanding the consciousness, right? So maybe someone is very stuck into, business mindset, and they need to expand their horizons, and they start to do a psychedelic medicine, and, they turn more towards the collective consciousness. And for other people, it might be actually embracing what is happening in their body on the emotional level, right? Maybe they are in the chapter of their life where they go through a lot of, just deep, heavy emotions. And maybe there is some trauma coming up in the body, or problems in the relationships, with your beloved or with your partner. So this is then to be able to embrace all of that, even the parts of our humanness that are very uncomfortable. And most of the time, we don't want them in our reality. We're trying to push them away because we always want to feel happy. We always want to feel pleasure. We always want to, whatever is it that we want. But to really be able to welcome, also this dark moments, and also our sexuality, right? Sexuality is such an important part of being human, and there is a lot of, I can talk about it, why is it important right now to look into our sexuality. But for other people, they are in the place in their life where these parts will be, the parts, of their, sexuality, of their embodiment that they cannot access because of the shame in the body or, different kind of trauma. So then this will be what they are about to embrace, right? And sometimes we have a lot of problems with really welcoming life because we are very much into this polarization. Okay, this is good, this is bad, this is right, this is wrong, this is what I like, this is what I dislike. And for me, Tantra really goes beyond that polarization, right? So it goes really into the place beyond all of that, when we can embrace all the flavors of life and stop to make judgments about what's welcomed here and what is not welcomed here.
So, because I have been told that Tantra is, Tan is expansion, and Tra is the science of expansion, but listening to you right now, maybe it is more the science of integration. And then I guess when you're integrated, you expand, I guess.
Exactly.
But so this is a discipline that would attract anybody who feels non-integrated, so who feels not whole, who has some sort of even existential anxiety or I mean, some people have specific issue that has to do with, anxiety or depressive episode, or not be able to find their purpose, feeling a little bit, like maybe have a problematic relationship with their loved one, with the family. So basically, anybody who is not well in the skin is welcome to this practice.
Exactly, yeah. And of course, tantric practices are not always about sexuality and making love, right? Again, depends on the lineages. Some lineages focus specifically on the practices, and these are the practices that you basically take to your bedroom. Others focus more of, all different aspects of life, the practices that help you also to stay present, focus, day-to-day life, not so much connected to sexuality. And then, there are different lineages, of more, the darker parts of our being. We call them the darker, more connected just to the density and to the earthiness. And, tantric schools, I believe, also are schools, some of them where they help us to liberate the body, right? To open the body, to release all the shame, fear, guilt that is stuck in our system, sometimes for generations. So what's happened then, that the more the body opens, the more space there is in the body, the more the soul can land. So the consciousness that we so much focus on these days, also through psychedelic plants, we are expanding the consciousness, right? Is I feel like it's a preparation for then to come back to the body. Yeah, and I can share also that my understanding is that on the path of evolution, we had to go through a stage, like a couple of thousand years or more, focusing on developing the consciousness, expanding the consciousness, developing the presence, because before that, we were driven by our very animalistic, very, bodily desires, right?
Basic instincts.
Yes, exactly. So we had to kind of learn how to control that, how to, in a way, dominate the body so we can grow and expand as a conscious beings. But what's happened then is that we went a little bit too far, and the mind became the muscles that, in my opinion, became overgrown, right? So, and again, just because we have big mind doesn't mean also that we are present and we are conscious, right?
Yeah, probably the opposite.
Yes, very often. And so then the psychedelic plants are coming into the picture, help us, help humanity to really bring the presence, bring the awareness to everything that we are doing and expand the field of consciousness. Realize that we are all one, we are all connected, that the love is something that truly matters in this world, right? And then once we have that presence and this awareness, then we can again come back on a descent path, right? So rather than ascension, which is, reaching to the sky and to heaven and overcoming bodily desires and in a way also repressing them to really focus on reaching out to higher states of consciousness, then we bring it again all the way down to our body. And as we go into the body, we're going to meet everything that we have left behind, yeah? And I feel like the psychedelic plants very often show us that everything that we're not willing to meet, sooner or later we have to look into that, yeah? There is no way around it. We can play with time, we can postpone things, but when it's time to meet your personal inner hell, your trauma, your wounds, this darkness that is inside of you, it's gonna come after you. So when we go on this path back into the body, very often these are the layers of the body that we need to face as well.
Yes, this is very important. I would like to make sure that our listener got this, because there is these two ideas that you mentioned. One is this idea of the glorification of the mind. This idea that Descartes says cognito ergo sum. This idea that the more we have a developed mind, the better of a human being we are. And this is proving that, as you say, we went too far away. And I can't remember who said that the mind is a great servant, but it's a terrible master. And we feel that in our civilization of, designed to accomplish things, the mind becomes almost a prison. And being stuck in your mind then, and now I'm exaggerating, but you might, develop illness in your body because you feel that you're like almost like neglecting the body. That's an important idea. And the second one is that you mentioned is that, in all the religion and philosophical tradition, this idea of ascension and transcendence and what is really respected, it's this idea of going through this, to transcend and to go into this ethereal place. And also there you're saying be careful, because sometimes liberation goes through dissension, it goes through understanding your body, this new age idea that the body is your temple, that you need to, there is this book called The Body Keeps the Score that really explains so well that all your traumatic events are stored in your body. So if you want to transcend, you need to descend. That's such an interesting. Thank you for sharing that. Yeah. So you mentioned all these different lineages. So which one got your attention and which one did you practice, if you want?
Yeah, so I spent most of my life in some form of darkness, and there was a lot of depression, a lot of addictions, a lot of partying, and then came the moment when I decided to leave this all behind. Well, not that I decided, but there was a really longing and calling from the depth of my soul, and I just had to create the change in my life. So I started with Ascension Path. right? And I start.
What is it? I'm not familiar with the ascension path.
Ascension.
Yeah.
So the path of actually transcending the body, right? And developing the consciousness, developing the presence, developing the awareness, all the practices that help us to expand on the consciousness level.
But what kind of cultural framework were you using for that?
So I think it started simply by you're doing yoga, doing yoga and different kind of meditations, and then I discovered theta healing. Theta healing, which is using the theta brain waves to create the altered states of consciousness as well, and change the belief systems and reprogram our system, so we can liberate ourselves from the different patterns.
But how does it work? How do you harness the theta frequency?
So there is a school. It's simply called Theta Healing School. And there are different trainings where they teach you through meditation how to access the theta brainwave. And then I was also a practitioner, so I was helping people, offering the sessions where they would, come to me with a specific issue, and I would put them in the state of theta brainwave for them to be able to release some of this conditioning and programming. So it's similar to hypnosis, but works with a different brain frequency.
Wow. But it's a machine that makes a noise?
No. It's actually through the meditations.
Yeah.
So it's very interesting. So it's a bit of, just one can say a bit of magic. And then, I'm saying that because I feel like it's important for people to realize that very often that where we have awakening, so-called awakening, when we realize when we awaken to to our conscious self, first step very often is this ascension path, this transcendence. We start with yoga, we start with meditation, we learn how to reprogram our belief systems, and so on and so on. And medicine plants are so helpful in that as well.
So you started simultaneously with meditation, yoga, the theta healing, and the psychedelics?
Then the psychedelics came in. I was using already psychedelics before, but in an unconscious way, I would say. So
like partying, like LSD?
Yeah, exactly. So then, I started to go to the ayahuasca ceremonies, and it helped me really to come out of the addictions, and I'm really grateful for that.
Sorry, because this is a topic that is dear to our listeners.
Yes, sure.
Do you mind to elaborate a little bit on how ayahuasca helped for you to address the addiction? What is the mechanism for you?
Yeah. So I spent maybe 15, 17 years in a party world, being a raver and, doing all kind of substances. And that was the way of life I knew. And then something changed in me, and when I realized that ayahuasca is there, and I heard many different stories, I started to get curious. And at some point, it was just coming like from the depth of my being, like, okay, I have to do it. And in my first session, I remember I just started to see like the book of my life, like someone would just take my book and just going through the pages. So it's a little bit, then I understood, was a little bit like people describe before the like when they have near-death experience, right? So it was a little bit of that. So that was the moment of this like, wow, like this is my life, right? And I wasn't really happy what I was seeing. And at that time, I was suffering.
So beautiful, no?
Yeah,
that there is such
incredible.
A technology.
Yeah, it's really it is really incredible. Yeah, and at that time, already for 7 years, I was suffering for very, very strong headaches, and I did a lot of, I went to a lot of doctors. I did a lot of tests. Nobody could tell me what it is, and it was this pain that I would describe as someone would put a screwdriver in my forehead.
Wow.
Yeah, so it was, we can say, where the third eye is. But I didn't understand that at that time. So I would have such a headaches that sometimes for week 2 that I would have to just do like 3 painkillers a day, and I would wake up with a headache and go to bed with a headache. And nobody could help me.
Wow.
And in my first ayahuasca ceremony, none of it made sense. I didn't understand what this book meant at that time. But then at some point, it showed up for me a hand that just started to do this movement of scooping from my forehead.
Wow.
And from that moment, I never had headache again.
Incredible.
Yeah, and I came to the ceremony with a headache, I remember, and that was really a miracle, that was really a miracle that shook me enough to start to believe in miracles. Yeah.
I mean, I'm sure a neuroscientist would say that, beliefs create biological pain. People have backache all their life, but nothing is wrong with their back. They call it psychosomatic pain, right? But which is more linked about a psychological condition than a physical condition. But I like also the word miracle.
Yeah, sometimes it's important when you are in the period of your life when you are in despair or you are depressed, right? Which most of the time is connected to feeling like there is no hope.
Yes.
Right? So these little miracles, and faith that comes in this moment, it's really can save your life, basically, yeah. And we don't want to make a sense out of it. And this is always what has been serving humanity in some stages, right? So for me, it was beginning of just being, amazed by and curious for this plant and the capacity of this plant. So in my second ceremony, I remember I had such a deep healing with my father, where I have started with my father, where we didn't have much of the contact, and and I thought I'm not being affected by it, it was, but then I realized that it was a part of me that I deeply repressed, because I didn't want to feel it. So in the second ceremony, I had a very deep healing connected to my father, and so on and so on. The journey has started. Because it reduced those tryptamines, this MDMT, they reduce this default mode network, which is the neuropsychopharmacologists call it the egoic armor. And when that is weakened, then the subconscious material become more accessible. Yeah, it's like incredible. Yeah. So to come back to your question, like how this helped me with my addictions and changing completely my lifestyle, is that I found out that after each ceremony I would just not be able to, for example, even have a glass of wine. Not talking about any other heavy substances. And now, looking back in time, I understand that, that it's because I felt so deeply connected to nature, and in the beginning it was the nature that I perceived on the outside of me, but then with the time I understood that to my own nature as well, right? So after each ceremony, I would have periods of being sober. And it
felt great.
And it felt great, but also it started to shake something in me, which is the wound of not belonging, because all my life and my tribe, the people around me, my community, was built around that. Yeah. So that's why I think it's so difficult to just change your lifestyle and come out of the addictions, because you will be asked to let go of probably everything at some point. Yeah. So then, so this became like another substance to work with in the next ceremonies, and in the next ceremonies, there will be different elements and pieces coming around, understanding of actually that I was in the wrong place, not only in the wrong place, doing the wrong things, but also with wrong people. Yeah. And that I have a mission on this earth, and there is something else that I'm supposed to be doing somewhere else with somebody else.
Nice. And where were you? In Amsterdam? No.
Actually, it was here in Ibiza. Yeah. That was in Ibiza, and most of these ceremonies in the beginning were in Ibiza, actually. Yeah.
Nice. So then how did you discover Tantra, and how did you pick your specific lineage?
Yeah. So this is how the story actually links very well. And this is a part of something that I wanted to also share here, is that, after this part of, ascension and expanding the consciousness and developing the consciousness, very often, and that's what's happened for me, I call it the matter of your body claims you. Yeah. So, okay, now is the next stage. Now it's time for me to go back to my body. Something calls me down to my body, to my base, to the earth. in the very embodied way, as acknowledgement that this body is actually earth itself. It's not on the outside, it's this. That my soul inhabits, right? So for me, it was like that. It just sometime I realized that this was my last ayahuasca ceremony. And now is the time to even stop to consume this plant. And I stopped also to consume all the psychedelics for some time, for a couple of years or more. And this is where a lot of trauma started to come up for me, embodied trauma and sexual trauma. And I'm not talking here specifically of, the trauma from abuse, of being raped, not necessarily just the ways how I was abusing myself, mainly because I was taking the substances, partying, then, having sex in a way that was very unhealthy, very disconnected.
Not present,
Not present. I was disassociating from my body. So I was raping myself in a way and abusing myself. And I know I'm using heavy words here, but it's also important that this is just being acknowledged for what it is, right? And in my system, it felt like that. It was really a trauma where I came to the moment in my life where nobody could touch me. I was just like, I was emanating through my body, just don't come close, So it threw me into 1.5 years of celibacy. Not because I consciously wanted to, but it's just because I wasn't able to connect with anyone. It was also the time I separated from one of my partners, and so I went deeply into the grief, into a heartbreak, and a lot of situations were happening in my life that were just pulling me down, So I started to seek again, and I heard about Tantra, and I was looking for all different lineages and trying different things, and nothing really deeply resonated, and I think this is why I never focus on any specific tantric lineage like Tao, or classical Tantra, or, any Vedic teachings. Like, for me, it was just tasting this, tasting that, tasting this, tasting that. And then I came across ISTA, International School of Temple Arts, which is a modern mystery school. And they're actually combining a lot of these different teachings. There are the different faculty that brings different knowledge from different lineages. And the framework is combining a lot of the ancient practices together with the modern ones. So it was like a school that was giving me everything that I was looking for.
Wow, incredible! But so who developed the curriculum of this school? Baba Des?
Yes, Baba Des is the founder, and then also I want to mention Bruce Lyon, who came in later and responsible also for a lot.
But so. This is very, in a way, very classic question. But so, what was Baba Des and Bruce Lyon background? They were trained like what,
So I'm not sure about Baba Des's background, to be honest. I'm not really sure. I don't think I can answer the question.
And Bruce Lyon?
Bruce Lyon, he is a guy that is just studied and investigated everything from science to different kind of mystic practices, cosmology. So this guy is really incredible well of wisdom, and I really recommend to check this guy out.
He wrote some books.
Yeah, there are some books.
Yeah.
There's a lot of esoteric books connected to cosmology, to soul initiation, and so it's quite esoteric stuff.
So we will put in the show notes the name and maybe these books. But I can't help asking you now, what is the link now with cosmology and Tantra?
So as I was mentioning, when we embark on this descent path back into the body, and in my communities, how we call it is to land the soul in the body. So that in a way we can look at it, and of course this is just a way of framing it, but we can look at it of a soul or the consciousness or the feel of unconditional love, coming deeper and deeper into the density of the body, right? So, in ancient times, these this was called a soul initiation. Yeah, and there was a lot of temples and mystery schools dedicated to the soul initiation. In the modern mystery schools, we are, going through the processes where consciously in the ritual and through different practices, we are bringing more and more consciousness and awareness into the body. And then everything that comes up on the way as we are coming into the body, we're coming deeper into the density, we're meeting the trauma, we're meeting our shame, guilt, we're meeting all the stuff connected to our sexuality, and we are dealing with it. We are learning how to feel safe with the intensity of our body, with intensity of how our body can make us feel sometimes overwhelming, right?
Yes.
With everything that it stores there. If we look at the cosmos, as a fractal, right? And it's like a microcosm and a microcosm, and as within, so without. So if we look at at the cosmos, there is the Earth, right? There is the sun, and there is the center of the galaxy or the black hole. And, we can, in the symbolism, the Earth means the body, the sun is the soul, and the center of the galaxy, the black hole, is our dark core or the spirit.
Or the subconscious.
So, we can use this as a framework.
Like a metaphor.
To really create, the processes that will help us to understand our nature and to understand how to bring ourselves into process of initiation where the soul can be integrated into body. Yeah.
Interesting. Interesting.
So the cosmology gives us a lot of insights into our nature.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah. It's like a semantic framework to understand our place in the universe and how by integrating our body we integrated us with everything, really. But so just to go back to more practical, so you felt that you were misusing sexual energy for many years, but you still felt that it was a strong force that maybe can be harnessed in a different way. You heard about Tantra, you start researching it, you find ISTA, so you start ISTA level 1. Where and how long ago?
Yeah, it was 3.5 years ago, I believe, in Guatemala. Yeah, first I heard about it a year earlier. And the moment I heard about it, already something started to shake in my body. There was a vibrancy in my body. Something was coming alive. And then I heard different names. And again, I had this reaction in my body, like, ooh, something is happening. And I was just coming out of this time of celibacy. So I was quite dead, let's say. And suddenly there's this aliveness, So that was, what is this? I want to follow that. I want more of that, right? So then I met some people from East. I had some connections with them, and there was almost like the introduction for me already. And again, I felt so much aliveness in my body, so much life force awakening, and I was feeling more and more ecstatic and just like excited about life again.
While you were there.
Yes.
But
yes.
So give us a little bit, if you can, a sense of the program. So it's 1 week. There is a little bit of theory, a little bit of practice, and then people are encouraged to just try. But just give a little bit of sense of what's happening in this 1 week long retreat.
Yeah. So then when I did my first ISTA level 1, it was quite challenging for me, actually, I have to say. What we do there really is we are diving into the topics of, first of all, like what are the fundaments that you need to learn to start to feel safe with your sexuality. So you learn the basics of consent. You learn the wheel of consent. You learn about the boundaries. You learn and practice a lot how to say no, which is a difficult part.
Yeah, I mean, they should teach it in school to teenagers.
Course, totally, yes. And we are working with our emotional body. Emotional body is a portal, and it's between, it's like almost the first step before we can go really, truly deeply into our root and our sexuality. And there is a lot of stuck emotions. There is grief, there is rage, shame, fear, guilt. So we deal with that. I mean, we never deal with that fully, but we work with it. In the level 1, we look into that, and we learn the tools. How to feel safe when our emotional body is activated, and how to increase fluidity, emotional fluidity, because we quickly learn that the more emotionally fluid we are, the more we can perceive life, feel life, and the more pleasure we can also feel. So we cannot choose what we want to feel, what we cannot feel. If we say no to grief, we say no to pleasure. It just simply we cannot choose. Either we feel life as it is, or we don't. So in level 1, we really tap into that and into this aliveness that becomes available once we really want to embrace life as it is. There are the shamanic tools we get, also how to deal with these different parts I was talking about, and how to really take life in our hands and reclaim our sovereignty. It's a lot about learning how to be a sovereign being, which means your own authority, how to know how to clear your emotional body so you can tap into your truth, into your presence. And from there, what's good for you, what's wrong for you, when it's your yes, when it's your no. We learn that very often, especially in the sexual context, we say yes when we mean no. Especially for women, it's a big issue to sometimes literally open your mouth and say something when there is already a gentle form of overriding boundaries happening. We get in freeze, so we also learn how to unfreeze. We learn, about the sex connected conversation, how do we actually become comfortable with talking about sex and safe sex practices as well.
This is so interesting, and we can have another full podcast on understanding the cause of this shame and guilt and lack of boundaries. It comes from the patriarchy, it comes from the Judeo-Christian morality. There is so much that has been done to create all this shame and guilt and unease around sexuality. Okay, so it was difficult for you because you had to face all your trauma. But then you left and you felt empowered.
Yes.
And you decided to be a tantrika. Was it that fast, or?
I think already a year before, when I started to, have all this, I call it tantric awakening happening in my body, when my kundalini started to awaken, and I started to experience, my body shaking and a lot of life force moving through, which will also create altered state of consciousness.
Wow, but so tell us a little bit about this Kundalini awakening. This is something you also had in yoga?
No. I there is, I think, a lot of misunderstanding about the Kundalini. The Kundalini yoga is a very different thing, and I think
that's a breathing. But I mean, you didn't have the Kundalini rising before the Tantra? No, not really.
I really never went fully into that practice, and I don't think it's the same thing.
Okay.
This is really like, it feels like an earthquake in your body, and it's an eruption from your base, and actually it feels like the very powerful energy of the earth wants to move through you.
Wow.
From your base and out through your crown. And because the body is not used to that energy and the power, and because there is not enough space in the body because of all this trauma and all this other stuff I spoke about, it creates the friction and resistance, and there is sometimes like a very, very uncomfortable feeling and shaking. So, and other times it brings this expanded vision, or used to take me into altered state of consciousness, and I was again like similar like with ayahuasca. Oh, I want more of that. I want to experience that. So when I did my first training, I was already in it. So even though it was challenging, I was able to understand that, okay, this was challenging because, again, like I didn't want to face a lot of that, and now I faced it and I liberated myself a little bit, and I want more liberation, and I felt ecstatic, and I was so open and so receptive and so flowy and so pleasurable, like I felt so much pleasure. And also when my emotions were coming, they were flowing, they were not getting stuck.
Amazing. I mean, who wouldn't want a Kundalini rising after this description? But so is it difficult to activate it?
There are the practices, of course, that can support you, but I think at the end is, there's certain things that needs to be done on the path first. And then, whether you want it or not, it's going to happen for you.
Yeah.
So maybe we can speed it up, or maybe not. We don't know really how is it, but when it comes, it comes. And you cannot provoke it if you're not ready for it.
Yeah. So being ready means working on your obstacles, on your psychological resistance.
Yeah, and also I believe also, developing the heart, because this is also the power that becomes available for you. That I believe that that we need to truly care and love for one another and for the planet to come to the point of being ready for another chapter. Yeah.
Amazing. So you have to do that journey from the mind to the heart.
Yeah, I believe we go from the mind to the heart. We expand our consciousness, and then we have the awareness present, and we have the love, and then we can dive into the mysteries of the bodies and mysteries of our sexualities and harvest the power that is available there.
Amazing. I mean, this practice seems to be, we are now in the, urgent need to integrate this practice into the mainstream and possibly in school. Because this teenager, they grow up completely misinformed and educated by porn. And, maybe the next evolution of the Me Too movement will be into, more Tantra available for the mainstream, because very few people even know about this practice exists, and they think it's such an esoteric thing, but it's just about knowing your body and tap to your heart. And so when did you decide to make this your career? Yeah, so, we all have different mission on this planet, right? And for some people it will be more connected to the consciousness awareness and so on. And for other people it's more connected to the body. And as I was doing these different trainings, mainly because I wanted to feel free and ecstatic and liberated, I started to realize that I carry a gift there, that actually something there and that I get faster than others, let's say, and that I'm able to see between veils, and that my shamanic capacities, in a way how I use this life force to create altered state of reality, it's something that comes easy for me. Nobody taught me this, just because I was put in the trainings where the field was supporting that revelations. I was able to almost remember that this is something that I know already. So, because I was the seeker, and because I tried so many things, and because I came from this, place of depression and so on, I really wanted to find this reason why I'm here. So when I started to feel that, it really felt like, oh, this is why I'm here for. This is why I'm here for. And then once really want to be there, when you start to feel it, I want to live that, I want to embody that now, but it doesn't happen so fast. You have the moments when you feel like you are it, and then again you forget. You lose it, yeah. And again, you go back into day-to-day life, and you deal with your problems, and you sometimes became an asshole, and you don't care, for a moment, then do again remember, right? So it was the period where I was just driven by really wanting to be this. And started to offer some little sessions here and there, just as an exchange, and going to do different trainings, and go to study at different mystery schools, more specific ones, until I came to the point when I realized that it's time to really step into this being my let's say full-time job. I don't like to call it this way, but you know what I mean. And I did the practitioner training of ISTA, which is specifically designed to actually offer one-to-one somatic, sexual, shamanic sessions that include body work and include working with the sexuality. Yeah, I want to get into that, but just to finish on the training. So you did level 2 then, of ISTA.
Yes.
And then there's a level 3,
Yes.
and then there's a practitioner workshop.
Yeah.
Okay.
Practitioner training, yeah.
Yes. Do you want to tell us a little bit the difference between level 1, 2, 3? So 1 you explain, how is 2 different?
So we not talk about what's happening in level 2,
Okay.
either in level 3, but I can say that it's a transpersonal work.
Interesting.
So we work, so it's not about you, it's not about your trauma, it's not about your story, it's not about you being a sovereign being, it's actually about service and about awakening to the transpersonal realms.
Yes. This is, for me personally, is very important. You know, I'm a big fan of Stan Grof, who's the godfather of transpersonal psychology. And just for people to understand, you know, Stan Grof used to say that Freud was fishing sitting on the back of a whale. Because, you know, Freud had this incredible intuition of psychosomatic ailment and how the psyche affect your body, but he was only looking at your biography. And then Stan Grof said, you know, a lot of stuff affect your psyche even before you were born. In the mother womb, you know, like all the children of the Jewish mother in Nazi time, they all end up with eating disorder. You know, the actual birth itself, going through the canal. Some kids has a, you know, easier birth, some as an emergency C-section, and also that affect your psyche. And then you can go to the transpersonal, which is your ancestry and your previous life, and you know, to really understand, I think, the human psyche, you have to look also at the transpersonal material, which we know. I mean, it's a leap of faith, but you know, there is more and more discipline like quantum physics, quantum mechanics, paranormal activity that shows that, you know, consciousness is not created by the brain, like a epiphenomenon of the brain. It came before mind. It's not that, you know, from a single cell amoeba, then we develop into, you know, these humans that, or these animals, when the brain was complex enough, then poof, consciousness appeared. You know, it might be the other way around. It might be that cosmic consciousness has been there forever and then created matter. So if we embrace this change of paradigm, then it is obvious that we are informed by a lot of transpersonal material. So, okay, so now tell us a little bit about how do you work? How is your, tell us a little bit about your work. I mean, what is I know it's difficult to standardize, everybody's different, but what type of clients do you have? What is it, even if there's not such a thing as typical, but what's the most, if you can standardize a little bit, what is the journey of your client?
Yeah, so most of my clients are people who actually are embarking or on the descent path. And sometimes it is, or at least feels like a conscious choice, because they just feel like they want to connect to their body, connect to the earth, connect to their sexuality. But
why? Because they feel they're disconnected.
Yes. Yes.
And how does it manifest into making love with your wife or your husband?
Yeah, like not feeling their power, not having erection, you know, like women having trauma that they are not able to receive a man, or disconnected from the womb, you know, or they just feel like just feel disconnected in general. I work a lot with the emotional body. I help people to feel safe in the body. Yeah, because what's happened is that very often we don't want to even talk about the heavy emotions or trauma. You know, sometimes when I talk to people, how is my day? And I use these words because sometimes I'm in it myself, right? Like I go through heavy emotions because I have a capacity to hold them. Right? I'm expanded in this way, and I'm capacity to hold heavy emotions, and sometimes, you know, not mine, right? So, and people contract. People are scared, you know, because our nervous systems, get overwhelmed. Yeah, so it's a gentle journey of learning how to feel safe with emotions, all kind of emotions. Expanding our capacity to hold it, but not in a way of controlling and replacing, but embracing it and finding ecstasy in it. Yeah, there is an ecstasy in grief. Yeah, there is a power in anger, because actually anger is, if you go a little bit deeper, it becomes rage. And rage is just pure, roaring, raw life force of the earth moving through your system. So if you know how to harvest that, you have a lot of power in your body, right? So I help people to really see, and change the narrative about judging emotions, and then as they start to feel safe, they start to come deeper into their bodies. They are opening more, they feel more safe, and then we can go into sexuality. Some people can go right away into sexuality, but for many people, the journey, at least the clients that come to me, it's connected with the emotional body first, the work with the emotional body.
Amazing, amazing. And so do you work with more man, woman, or couple, or everybody?
Yeah, I work with both. I work more with men than women these days, just because I don't control that. That's what happens. I work also with couples. With women, I work these days more in the context of circles. And I have gathering coming up and a little retreat. So I work in groups with women, but one-to-one these days mainly with men. Yeah.
Yeah. And do you have teenager yet? Or young adult, like 18, 22?
No. Actually, this is the topic that circulates around me a lot. And, I have a lot of friends here who have children, and they keep asking me, but no. I think it's a little bit tricky to work with the teenagers. Yeah. They are very often, they I don't know, they maybe not so open, and then you cannot work with the children under 18 because basically it's illegal.
Yeah. Let's call it like young adult, like 18, 23, like this. Because my son is not very open with me about his sexuality, but, I would imagine that, still sexuality is very much linked to alcohol. And I don't know how many of these young kids are really present and understanding what's happening, and so this has been super interesting. So where people can find you if they've been intrigued, they want to work with you? You have a website and Instagram?
Yes, I have Instagram, which is Divinity in Matter.
Nice.
And also my website, divinityinmatter.com.
Perfect.
Yeah.
And people can find everything on the show notes. This is fantastic. We're now getting to 1 hour. Is there anything you want to address our audience that we haven't covered?
Yeah, what's coming to me now, it's to share, like this part around just embracing our whole body, and just as we embrace everything who we are, the whole humanness, the ugly, the beautiful, the messy, the pleasure, the pain, and so on, also embracing all of the body, which is also, our genitals, receiving a body work that includes also all these parts that very often are linked to shame. And so in my work also I focus a lot on that, on really like learning people how to feel comfortable naked and comfortable with their genitals, with their sexuality, and how to really see the innocence of our bodies, the innocence of our sexuality, and the sacredness of our flesh and bones.
Amazing. Thank you very much for your time, and we'll speak to you soon.
Thank you so much.
Ciao, grazie.
Ciao.
Koka sunarai sunarayenti. 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 Koka sunarai sunarayenti.